What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, Under Center with Abelson, presented by the Real Spiel Sports Channel. What a week of Week 5 we have coming up. This is the weekend where, during the preseason, when you're looking through the schedule and you're seeing all the matchups for the weeks, and you mark your calendar as this is the weekend to keep your eye for because this has potentials to be the greatest weekend of the year in sport in college football. This is that weekend. Last year it was October 12th where you had like Ohio State go to Oregon, and I forgot all the other matchups, but this is that weekend. Georgia, Alabama, Penn State, Oregon, USC, Illinois, LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, we can just keep going on and on and on. This is that weekend. I feel bad for the people who have to go to fall weddings. I am one of those people who have to go to a fall wedding. Luckily, I'm going to be on the West Coast, so I will get to watch most of these games before the wedding. The reception of the wedding will be going on while Penn State, Oregon, and Alabama and Georgia are playing. So pray for me, but I will have my phone on me, so I will, have YouTube TV up on my phone with the quad screens on the dance floor. So don't feel too bad for me. But like I said, this is the weekend of college football. And I like how we're getting these big matchups so early in the week in the year. Because there's still a lot of questions that haven't been answered. I think this weekend, a lot of teams are facing their first real opponents for the first time. Oregon and Penn State, they haven't really played anybody at all. So we're going to get a lot of questions to these answers a lot of answers to these questions that we have. And I think a lot of teams are going to get exposed. A lot of things will get revealed. But enough chitter chatter. We got a lot to get into today for our picks. So before we get into it, though, comment, like, subscribe, share. And yeah, let's get into it. We are going to start with some Friday night action, a little appetizer before Saturday. We have we have TCU traveling to Arizona State. Friday night game. TCU finally sneaking their way into the top 25. This has been a team who I think has been incredible to start the year. Very underrated. They slapped North Carolina. They beat SMU last week, a team who people thought was going to be right there in the ACC championship run. Their offense, Josh Hoover, he's been absolutely balling. Sonny Dykes, he had a bad, not even a bad, but he had a kind of, after that NCAA championship run, kind of fell off a little bit. But I think this team has a making to really compete in the Big 12. Arizona State looking to, keep things going. Obviously, they took that loss to Mississippi State on the road, so they were looking to bounce back. Not that they haven't. They beat Baylor in a great game last weekend. I think they walked it off with a field goal. So they're looking to keep things going. Great quarterback matchup we have here. Josh Hoover versus Sam Leavitt. These are probably two of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. And Arizona State is a minus 3.5 point favorite, which is a little surprising to me. I feel like Arizona State got exposed a little bit in that Mississippi State game. They're very not one dimensional. They're very dependent on Jordan Tyson. They're obviously their star receiver. In most of the games, if you go look at the stat line, he'll catch for 100 yards, and the next person will be up catch for like 30. So I feel like they really need somebody to step up, because I don't think just relying on Tyson Jordan the whole entire year is going to be kind of a recipe for success. That's a lot of pressure to put on one player. They did run the ball extremely well against Mississippi State, which was going to be one of my biggest questions with Arizona State. Losing Cam Scadaboo, who's obviously killing it with the Giants so far. How were they going to replace, his elite production? And they found a way to do it. That second half of the Mississippi State game, they came out running all over Mississippi State. That's really how they got back into the game. They were down 17-0, and they said, fuck it. Obviously we can't pass the ball, so they just started running it down Mississippi State's throat. on that last possession where they eventually got stopped, I think they had like a 10 or 11 play drive that took up like 8 minutes off the clock. That's against an SEC team who's obviously a little more towards the bottom, but who is still in a solid team, with solid players. So I think if they can continue to run the ball against TCU, I think they do have a chance. TCU, their defense has been well. They've been explosive on offense. Obviously, like I said, Josh Hoover has been killing it. 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think, as cliche as it sounds, I think the team that gets the better quarterback play in this game will win. I guess it doesn't really sound cliche because there's times where the quarterback doesn't have to play all too well, and you can still win if you have a good team around him. But I think these two quarterbacks are, the engines of their teams. They're the ones that get things going and keep things rolling. So I think, the quarterback who finds the most success will win this game. I'm leaning TCU. I was high on Arizona State coming into this season. I haven't fell off the train yet, but I just like the way TCU is playing, and if I can get them as an underdog, I think that's great value for them. -3.5. It is going to be rocking at Arizona State. That's an underrated crowd environment, but we have to go with TCU. I don't want to go with just all favorites this week. We had a good week last week. Went 4-2. I don't want to go with all favorites this week. So I'm going to go with TCU. Friday night games were on the road. Things always get scary. Things always get scary for the home team. Friday night on the road, weird things always happen. I'm going to go with TCU on this one. Next game we got is the Big Noon kickoff. Thank God Big Noon took this game. That way we can see Oregon and Penn State wide out at night on NBC. For once, Big Noon kickoff finally did the right thing. But this is also an incredible game. We have USC versus Illinois. Illinois obviously looking to bounce back after just getting absolutely mollywopped by Indiana. They scored, I think, on their opening drive, and from then on, they just proceeded to literally only score a field goal for the rest of the game. I picked Illinois to win, or no, I picked Indiana to win and to cover the spread, but I definitely didn't see Indiana winning by 53 points. But obviously coming in to face USC, looking to keep things rolling after taking down Michigan State. I wish I could say I watched, a lot of that game, but I didn't. That was on. It was like still on at 1. I don't think that game ended till like 2, almost 2:30 East Coast time. So I definitely fell asleep, but Jaden Mayava looking to keep things rolling against Illinois. I think this is going to be because Michigan State, they were plus 18.5. I picked them to cover, and we got that right. But I also thought Michigan State was going to lose by double digits. I just thought 18.5 was a big number. So I don't think that was really ever a test for USC. They were at home. Michigan State's going to be a pretty solid team. I could see them, winning 6 games this year, getting into a bowl game. But I don't think they were really ever going to threaten USC. So I think this is the real first test that we have to see if this USC team is for real. It just always feels like over the last couple of years, they flirt with being okay. They get all this preseason buzz and hype. But obviously, Lincoln Riley hasn't really been able to live up to, kind of that standard he set at the last couple of years at Oklahoma and his first couple of years with USC. So this is a game where I think we'll really find out if USC is for real, because these were the games that they just couldn't win last year that kind of ruined their season. They finished 7-5. They easily could have gone, like 9 or 10 wins. I think they lost like 5 or 6 games. I think they lost like 4 games within a touchdown. But yeah, these are the games they just couldn't win last year. Traveling over to the East Coast for, an early game. They lost last year in that fashion to Minnesota. They lost last year in that fashion to Maryland. And now they're traveling to another, Midwest team for an early game. So I think this is a tough spot for them. But Illinois, I'm slowly to starting to get off the train for Illinois. This was a team I was pretty high on early in the preseason. I thought, the fact that they brought back a veteran quarterback and a lot of production, I thought not that I'm not really one of those guys who just because you bring so much production back you're going to be a good team, but I thought were they were good last year. It's not. I didn't think it was going to be a flash in the pan. I still think they are a good team. I do just think they were maybe a little bit overrated in the preseason. Because I mean that game against Indiana was just absolutely awful. They could not stop Indiana to save a nosebleed. Like it didn't matter what Indiana was doing. They threw for over 250 yards. They rushed for over 250, almost 300, I think. Fernando Mendoza threw for 5 touchdowns. The running backs ran for it didn't matter what they did. They could not stop the pass game. I think Fernando Mendoza only threw 2 or 3 incompletions. He was literally getting whatever he wanted. And I was a little surprised because Illinois, especially with Brett Bielema, they are a tough, gritty group. They play tough on the defensive end, and it's just surprising that defense just did not show up. And in my opinion, I think USC might be a better offense than Illinois. USC right now, I think they're number 3 in the country in total offense. Jaden Maiava, I think, is leading the country in mostly. He's leading or top 3 to 5 in all the statistical categories. Passing yards, passing touchdowns, yards per pass, and all that stuff. So this is an elite offense, and this is an offense that I think the problem with Lincoln Riley and USC over the last couple of years, they really haven't found that Baker-type quarterback who wants to stay within the offense, but who's actually good enough to elevate the offense. Obviously, with Caleb Williams, he was a good, quarterback, Heisman winner, but he was making plays out of structure, I think, more than he needed to, running when he didn't have to, extending plays when he didn't have to. Baker was really that last quarterback who was, staying on time, on target, on schedule, running in the plays within the offense. And I think that's why USC is having a lot of success on the offensive end with Jaden Maiava. It's because he's not really trying to do too much. He's staying within the offense. He's not really, whatever Lincoln Riley is asking him, he's getting it done and not causing any trouble. And I think they've one thing underrated about Lincoln Riley is the fact that he looks like a pass-happy coach, but his Oklahoma teams that were really good were always run almost first teams. They always led the country or were top in the country in running yards per game and per carry. And I think that's where things have started to slip these last couple of years. They really haven't had a running back who's been able to keep the chains moving. And I think they have one this year. I can't think of his name, but they have a couple guys this year who are running the ball really well. And I think I like USC on this one. I don't know what the spread is. Okay, so right now the spread is sitting at USC minus 6.5. I honestly like them to cover this. I have not been the biggest USC fan. I have not been the biggest USC guy. For the last few years, have been calling them frauds because they get so much preseason hype, and they just haven't lived up to it. And honestly, they've been very subpar the last few years. But I do think USC is a very solid team this year. I think they finally got their quarterback. Their defense is playing well enough. I think they're top 50 or 60 in the country overall on defense, which has been their Achilles heel. I think Illinois, I think they really got exposed last week. And I think USC will be able to pick them apart, honestly. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. It's still a road game, early kickoff for a West Coast team, but I do think USC covers the minus 6.5 spread. I will take USC minus 6.5. Next up, we got Notre Dame versus Arkansas. Again, this is a bounce back spot for Notre Dame. They're looking to kind of get things going after starting 0-2. They got a big time, not even a big time win, but they got a much needed win against Purdue last week. Arkansas, they just absolutely shit the bed against Memphis. They were up by 18 or something like that, and had a chance to win at the end, and I think fumbled the ball, and obviously lost to Memphis. That Arkansas defense so far has just been absolutely terrible. They gave up 41 points to Ole Miss, the backup, which obviously that backup at Ole Miss, Childless or whatever his name is, he's been playing extremely well. But still, giving up 41 points to a backup. Then they gave up 32 points to a group of 5 team in Memphis. Memphis is a good team. I don't say Group of Five lightly or disrespectfully. Like Memphis is a very good team. They have a chance to compete in that American Conference, but you can't give up 32 points when you're up 18 to a Group of Five team when you're in the SEC like that. You just can't do that. Um, they've been giving up over 7 yards per play over the last two games. So I mean, their opponents are just getting everything they want on the ground and through the air. Um, this is honestly, this is a tough spot for I think Arkansas. I know they're at home, but this Notre Dame offense has been very impressive this year. That was my biggest question mark with Notre Dame coming into the season was how was their offense going to be. Obviously, at least through the air, they weren't elite by any standards last year, but they still had a successful offense. They were able to get points, run the ball. Riley Leonard made timely passes. And I was just very curious to see what kind of offense they brought in this year, especially with the first time starting quarterback with CJ Carr. But honestly, they've been pretty impressive. They went toe to toe with Miami, lost that game by a field goal. Even the game they lost that they easily and very well should have won against Texas A&M, they put up 40 points. You put up 40 points and you lose, and then last week against Purdue, I think they put up another 40 ball. So this offense is looking good. The question that we honestly have for Notre Dame is their defense, which is very, very surprising. If you would have asked me coming into the year, what are some, almost locks in college football, I would have said, Notre Dame is going to have a good defense. They brought back a bunch of their guys. Number 15, the cornerback, is the top cornerback in the country. Obviously, Marcus Freeman is a defensive-minded coach, and Notre Dame's defense just always plays tough, physical football. But, again, their defense has not really been there. They got torched through the air by Marcel Reed in that Texas A&M game. Got 41 points dropped on him at home. And Marcel Reed just picked them apart. He threw for 300 yards, a couple touchdowns. That's Marcel Reed, a guy who, in my opinion, had a lot of question marks coming into this year about his throwing ability. We knew he's a dual threat guy who can run. But to get picked apart like that by Marcel Reed, and even Purdue, I think Purdue, who nobody really takes Purdue seriously, I think they even dropped, 24 points on them? They dropped 30 points on Notre Dame last week. Notre Dame ended up, winning 56-30, but they got 30 points dropped on them by Purdue, who, that's not really a team anybody's, taking too serious this year with a lot of guys through the portal with Barry Odom's squad. So I think the obvious bet on this one is to take the over. I think the total over on this one is going to hit, I don't even know what it's at. Let's see what it's at. The total over on this game is, let's see. I think it's at 64.5. That's a lot of points, but I would easily take that. Again, Arkansas, they can't stop a nosebleed. But I think the reason they do have a puncher's chance in this game is because of their offense. That offense has been humming. Taylor Green, he has been playing extremely well. They lost to Ole Miss, but they dropped 35 against Ole Miss. Dropped enough points to win against Memphis, dropping 30. They put up over 50 points in their first couple of games. So Taylor Green, I think he's taking a step this year in the right direction, and he's such a dual threat guy. I think he's ran for over 100 yards each in his last 2 or 3 games. So I think they have a chance to give Notre Dame some trouble, especially since Notre Dame's defense has not looked buttoned up. So I think the over is absolutely the play. I could definitely see this game ending, 39-40 to, 29-35, the losing team has. But, yeah, as far as the pick for this game, I got to side with Notre Dame. As I said last week, they're just such a tough team when their backs are up against the wall. This is a team who really can't afford to slip up for the rest of the year. Their line right now is at -4.5. One more loss, and Notre Dame is definitely eliminated. They are not making the playoffs if they lose again. And I just think, when push comes to shove, their defense is going to come to play. They're going to make enough stops. I do think they take this one. I like the -4.5 Notre Dame. Next up, we got Ohio State traveling up to Seattle to play Washington. Um, this has the making to be a very, very underrated game. Washington, I think they're one of the most underrated teams in the country. They're starting out 3-0. They just absolutely worked Washington State last week at the Apple Cup. I don't think they got a single AP vote, which is honestly kind of bizarre. I definitely thought they would have been in the received votes category, even if they're not top 25. This is a team who has the second longest home win streak in the country. It's literally Georgia and them. Georgia's won 33, 34 games in a row at home. Washington's second with 22 in the country. So this is a very, very tough place to play. Ohio State, obviously having to travel to a different time zone. It's going to be a 12 o'clock kickoff for them, but at the end of the day, it's still traveling to a different time zone. But yeah, this Washington team is very underrated. They lead the country in third downs. I think they're number 2 in the country in offensive scoring. Their quarterback is very solid dual threat guy. Their running back Coleman is one of the best running backs in the country. I don't think this is going to be, I don't think this is a gimme. This ain't a gimme for Ohio State. This ain't a gimme putt. Ohio State obviously looking to keep things rolling. I think they've been playing extremely well. It's crazy that they lost so much talent from last year and still just completely retool and reload. They lost 14 guys in the draft. 14 guys in the draft. And it's almost like it doesn't even matter. Like, their defense, which in my opinion was their biggest question. I don't know if it was their biggest, but it was one of the big question marks for the team is how will their defense, how will they be replacing all those veteran starting guys from last year, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Denzel Burke. Obviously, lost so many guys, but they literally just retooled and reload, man. They have been absolutely elite this year, holding Texas to 7 points, shutting out Grambling, that's insane. They've only given up 15 points this year, or 16 points this year. That's actually insane because I don't care who you're playing. It's hard shutting teams out. Like, you could be the number 1 team in the country playing a Group of 5 team, a mid-major team. It's hard shutting teams out, and they've basically almost held a shutout in every game. In even Texas, who at the time we didn't know the offense was a little, but that's still impressive. But yeah, Julian saying he's been playing, extremely well. He leads the country in completion percentage. He's been playing well. He was probably my biggest question mark for Ohio State coming into the season. This is not a guy who had a lot of reps under his belt. But if there's one thing that I think you can always trust as an Ohio State fan is that the quarterback position will always be good. I think Ryan Day knows what he's doing with the quarterbacks. Even when they had Kyle McCord. Ohio State fans didn't really like Kyle McCord, and people, if you would have asked Ohio State fans, they would have probably thought they had a bad year, but they went 11-1 and lost to Michigan off of a game-tying interception. And people probably consider him one of the worst quarterbacks they may have had in the last few years, and they still went 11-1. So, nonetheless, Julian saying I think this is going to be a good game. I think Washington the defense is gonna have to come to play. I know I'm talking about their offense. I'm not, I haven't watched too many Washington games this year, so I'm not, 100% sure on how well their defense is, and they really haven't been tested yet. And I think this Ohio State team is going to test them. I think you can kind of see the first game against Texas, Ryan Day just kind of tamed Julian saying, didn't want him doing too much. But slowly and gradually, he's been getting more and more reins of that offense and getting more and more comfortable. Jeremiah Smith has already 300 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 15 yards per reception. So they're starting to feed him. Washington's defense is going to have to come to play. I I think it's a tough spot for Ohio State, but I haven't seen anything from Ohio State. They're like, I have Miami as my number one team, as we'll get into later, but honestly, the only reason they're my number one team is because their resume is a little better. I don't know if there's really, it's close, but Ohio State is playing probably some of the best football in the country. Um, and a lot of people just really aren't, I don't know if people are not paying attention or anything, just because they really haven't played anybody since the Texas game, but I don't think that Texas game was a fluke, man. Their defense is elite. I think this is going to be a tough game for Washington. I'm going to ride with Ohio State, even though I don't like Ohio State. We're going to take Ohio State minus 8.5. Next up, probably the toughest game for me to pick this weekend. LSU versus Ole Miss. LSU, I don't know if they're coming off a bye or whatever, but obviously they're undefeated, but things aren't as clear, I think, in my opinion, for LSU as I thought they were in the beginning of the year. Obviously, they had that game against Clemson, which is starting to age, honestly, terribly now. But at the time, they had gone to Clemson, beat them on the road in a defensive slugfest. It's crazy because my opinions of LSU coming into this season would have been elite offense, shaky defense, and the opinion on LSU has completely flipped. Their defensive is solid, and their offense has been shaky. I thought maybe it was maybe Clemson's defense was giving them trouble in that first game, but things just don't seem to be clicking with LSU, and I'm not really sure why. I just don't know, man. That Florida game was a real eye opener. To get 5 interceptions and to not be able to score more than 2 offensive touchdowns was extremely puzzling. Outside of last weekend, again, where they played Southeast Louisiana, they haven't even really been that great offensively. They put up 17 points against Clemson. They put up only 23 against Louisiana Tech. Only 13 against Florida, because one of their points came from that pick six. And I don't think this is how you want to be going into this game against Ole Miss, a team who's, may have found a diamond in the rough at the quarterback position. Obviously, Austin Simmons was their starter. He, hurt his ankle in the Kentucky game and tried to go last week against Tulane I think he tried to go against Arkansas and just couldn't get it going, and they brought in the backup. Chambliss, which I had never heard of the guy. He went to, I think, some Group of 5 or FCS school or something like that, but he's just been coming in and lighting it up. Dropped 41 points on Arkansas in his first start, 353 passing yards. He ran for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then last week against Tulane, which I had picked Tulane to cover the spread. I think the spread was at like 11.5, and Ole Miss was over there doing alley-oops on the sideline from their coach by the third quarter. Dropped 45 on a good Tulane team. This is probably going to be one of the better Group of 5 teams in the country with a chance to make the playoffs. And dropped 45 on them, threw for another, 300 yards, ran for 100 yards. People are saying there may be a quarterback controversy in Oxford, man. I think obviously Austin Simmons is still hurt, so I think I know it hasn't been announced yet, but I think Chambliss is going to get the start against LSU. I was surprised. The opening line on this, I think, came out. I think Ole Miss might have been like a 2.5, 3.5 point favorite, which was a little surprising to me. But the more, again, this is a tough game to me, man, because I don't know what type of game it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a shootout. I don't know if it's going to be a defensive slugfest. Let's see what the over-under is. The over-under right now is 55.5. So Vegas thinks, it's not going to be a shootout, but I think some points are going to get scored. But I guess going back to LSU, their key to this game, it has to be their offense. They have to get it going. They have to figure it out. That was the one thing I thought LSU was going to be great at this year was their offense, bringing back a veteran quarterback. Um, they killed it in the portal with Nick Anderson and Barian Brown from Kentucky, um, but it just hasn't been clicking so far yet. It just hasn't. But it's weird to say I do trust their defense. Their defense has been playing extremely, extremely well. I think their defense is going to have to step up big time against Ole Miss. Um, I think this game, I think the team who comes out and performs better on the defensive end is going to win this game. I do think Ole Miss is going to, or I do think LSU is going to kind of snap back into maybe reality when it comes to their offense. I think they may have some more success because Ole Miss's defense hasn't really been lighting things up or haven't been playing too well. I'm not saying they've been playing bad, but I don't think Ole Miss has really an elite defense. So I think LSU will have some success if they get things going on the ground, and I think Garrett Nussmeier might flip that switch and they might get things going. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna take LSU. I really trust their defense. Um, I think they are a solid team this year, even though they've kind of been falling in my rankings. I think they're gonna, like I said, pick things back up and snap back into reality. And I'm just gonna go on the limb. It's basically a pick'em game, but they're plus 1.5. I'm gonna take them plus 1.5. Money line, whatever. When it's that low, we're gonna take LSU to win this game. Next up, we got Auburn versus Texas A&M. Um, Auburn looking to bounce back, man. Looking to bounce back after a tough loss to Oklahoma. Felt like a game they had a chance of winning. Obviously, I know people have been talking about the missed calls and unfortunate bad calls. Obviously, Oklahoma had that touchdown where the guy looked like he was running off and was wide open. They had that fumble that got called back, but you can't really blame the refs. As much as it sucks, you can't really blame the refs. They had the lead 17-16, I think, in the fourth quarter with like 5 minutes to go, and John Mateer did what John Mateer did, and they scored the touchdown. So I know you can blame the refs all you want, but they still had their chances on that last drive. Down by 4 points. They couldn't even get out of their own end zone, basically. They got sacked like 3 times on the last possession and ended with a safety. So you can't really blame the refs when you have a chance and you don't do anything with that chance. But nonetheless, Auburn is looking to bounce back. I think, if I'm just being honest, I think this is not really a good spot for Texas or for Auburn. This is a team that is coming off a terrible loss. They've played 5 straight games. This is their second straight SEC road game, and they're playing a team with Texas A&M who is playing extremely good football and coming off a bye and at home. I just don't like this spot for Auburn, man. Texas A&M's offense looks legit. I think that was one of their biggest question marks coming into this game. Like I said earlier, they just absolutely torched that Notre Dame defense. Maybe it was because Notre Dame defense isn't as good as we thought, or maybe it's because Texas A&M's offense is better than we thought. But Marcel Reed, he looks like he has made some steps in the right direction. That was kind of the biggest question mark with him last year, is how good could he be as a thrower. This is a guy who's obviously an extremely good athlete, can run the ball. But I thought the way he played against Texas A&M or against Notre Dame was eye-opening. He was making throws. He was making deep throws. He was reading the defense well. He was poised. He wasn't really just running just to run. And that's a Notre Dame defense, man. Notre Dame's defense is always solid. And he threw for over 300 yards, I think, or 250 yards and a couple touchdowns against Notre Dame. And their wide receivers. That maybe also be another reason why he's been having a lot of success in the passing game, is their wide receivers. Casey Concepcion and Cover, the other one, has just been, they've just been killing it. Clover, he, in my opinion, has been the best wide receiver in the country this year. They're just constantly making plays down the field. And I don't know. This is a tough spot for Auburn, man. I like Texas A&M's defense. I like the receivers. Moss in the backfield has been getting the running game going at home, coming off a bye. And like I said last week, I just don't believe in Jackson Arnold's arm, man. I just don't believe in Jackson Arnold's arm. Um, that's kind of the reason why he didn't have a lot of success at Oklahoma. We know what he is as a runner, but when push comes to shove and he needs to make a play with his arm, it's just not it. I think the key for Auburn in this game, they have to get off to a good start. On the road, I do not think they can afford to go down early 7-0, 14-0, or 7-0 is whatever, but they can't afford to go down 10-0, 14-0 in the first quarter and get jumped, because if they do, I don't think Jackson Arnold in that offense is a team that can kind of come from behind. Um, so I think they have to set the tone early and get off to a great start. And if you're Texas A&M, I just think you got to keep doing what you've been doing, playing the offense well, running the ball, playing good defense. I think right now they're sitting at -6.5. I'm going to take Texas A&M on this one. I like them to win at home. I think Auburn falls to 0-2 in their first two SEC games. Give me Texas A&M -6.5. Next up, we got Happy Valley. We got Whiteout. We got we are Penn State. We got Oregon versus Penn State in the Whiteout game. Finally, it's been a couple years, honestly, since I don't even remember the last big Whiteout Penn State game. It's been that long because the last few years, all the big games in the Big Ten have been on Big Noon Fox, and the Whiteout has always been, a terrible team who's not even that good. But now we got the Whiteout in its truest form, a top 6 matchup, Penn State versus Oregon. It's going to be electric. I think that's the best single environment in the country. I know there's LSU at night, and Georgia's obviously has their home win streak, but I think Penn State at night in the Whiteout is the best environment in college football. Obviously, we know the story. James Franklin, 4-10 against top 10 teams. That's always the narrative around him. He can't win the big games when he needs to. Has a chance at home in this Whiteout to do that. I think Oregon has been. They don't have the resume, but just as far as how well they've been playing, I mean, they're playing like a top 3 team in the country. That offense has been clicking on all cylinders. My biggest question was coming into the season for Oregon was Dante Moore. He didn't really have too much success at UCLA. Obviously, he backed the Bill and Gabriel last year, but I mean, he has been playing absolutely out of his mind. He is a great player. This is gonna be a tough game, man. This is one of those other games where I know what I'm picking on this one, but this is another one where like I've been going back and forth and not really sure, what game it's gonna be. I think Penn State. I think the key for them to win this game is to turn this into a Penn State game. What I mean by that is Penn State, albeit even though they don't have that great of success against these top 10 teams in these big games, they do a damn good job of making it a tough game, making it a dirty, grinded out game. Last year when they played Ohio State, what happened? It turned into a slugfest. I think the game ended up. I don't even think Ohio State may have scored like 21 points, but it was a tough, grinded out game. Michigan a couple years ago, basically the same roster. Michigan had to resort to running the ball 27 straight times in the second half. They didn't throw it in the second half. Why? Because Penn State, I think, in my opinion, made it that type of game. Although they don't win these games, they have the ability to kind of slow the game down, grind things out, and kind of turn it into a slugfest. And I think that's what they're going to have to do to slow down this Oregon offense. Because Penn State is my national championship winners. I have in no way jumped off the boat yet. I still like Penn State. I still like them to win the national championship, but I don't know, man. I don't know if Drew Aller is just maybe, who we think he is. We keep waiting. It's like Cade Klubnik. We keep waiting for things to click. We keep waiting for things to turn explosive. We keep waiting for Drew Aller to turn into that guy, and it just hasn't materialized yet. This offense has not really. The defense is always going to be the defense. The defense is always good. They're top 20 in almost every category so far. I mean, they haven't really played anybody, but they still are. But the offense is just not clicking. Drew Aller's 2 of 9, I think, on plays that are 20 plus yards. They really haven't really been able to stretch the field vertically. Obviously, they have a great running game with those two elite backs. But I just have not seen it from Drew Aller yet, man. I have not seen it from him yet. And I hope he turns it around. I hope this is the year he figures it out. This is going to be a big test for him. Oregon is not just an offensive team. I know that's what always gets talked about, but they are very solid defensively. They have a veteran group. But I don't think Penn State can win this game if they turn it into a shootout. I think they need to kind of turn it into a physical, run-minded game, and then get things opened up with Drew Aller through the passing game. As far as Oregon, I think they just need to kind of keep on doing what they're doing. Again, you don't want to get dragged into that mud pit with Penn State on the road. That's a tough crowd. That's a tough environment. I do think we're going to get a little bit more insight on if Dante Moore is truly legit. This is really his first time coming into an environment like this. He hasn't really played any great teams this year. This is the environment, Penn State on the road during the whiteout. It's going to be tough, so I think we're going to really kind of see what they're made of. I'm like I said, I'm riding with Penn State. I have not jumped off the train. Right now, they're sitting at -3.5. I like them to cover that. I'm going to take Penn State -3.5 at home. In the game that unfortunately will be going on at the same exact time, Alabama versus Georgia. Because I don't think this is a historic SEC rivalry. If I'm mistaken, I think Alabama's historic rivals are Auburn and LSU and Tennessee, and then Georgia's is Auburn and Florida. But for whatever, I know that they've been playing a lot lately, and I'm here for it. But this has become one of the best games in the country every single time they play. This was the game of the year last year. Obviously, Alabama jumped out to a 28-0 lead, thought they were going to run away with it. Then Georgia, out of nowhere, just punches back and eventually takes the lead. And everybody obviously knows how the game ends. Ryan Williams with that twirly-dirly touchdown to the house. I think we're going to get a lot of questions answered about Alabama with this game. Obviously, they got smacked around by Florida State, and then they kind of fell into the background because they didn't really play a lot of good teams after that. And Ty Simpson, started to pick things up, and he's looked amazing in his last few games, completing 80+% of his passes, throwing for touchdowns. Alabama gets their starting running back. I think that's going to help out as well. I think my biggest question and my biggest key, I think, to Alabama winning this game is their offensive line. Again, it did not look good against Florida State at all. I mean, Ty Simpson did not have time to throw whatsoever. People were kind of blaming Ty Simpson on that game, but he was running for his life almost every time, and Florida State was just pushing them around. And albeit Georgia, their defense overall hasn't really been Georgia-esque this year. I think right now they're giving up 300 yards per game. I think they're giving up over 200 passing yards per game. I think they're 105th in sacks per game. That defensive line has always been a unit last year with Jalen Walker and Michael Williams, obviously Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and all those guys. Over these last couple of years, that's been the unit that's been the best unit on their team. You could always count on it. And they just have not looked elite this year on the defensive end, and especially on the front line. Obviously, they gave up a bunch of points to Tennessee. They really couldn't stop Tennessee's offense in that first half. So I think initially that's where the matchup's going to be, is Georgia's defensive line versus Alabama's offensive line, and Georgia's defense in general versus Alabama's offensive line unit-ish. I think whoever wins that matchup has the advantage because, again, when Ty Simpson doesn't have time to throw, he is not really in my opinion, an off-script playmaking quarterback. You have to give him time to throw and let him, because when he gets time to throw, he's surgical. He's elite when he has time to throw. So I think that for Alabama, I think if they win the game, I think you'll look back and say, oh, they won it because of their offensive line and protecting the quarterback and running the ball. I think if Georgia ends up winning the game, I think you'll be able to say, oh, they won the game because their defensive line just absolutely mauled Alabama. And Georgia's always a team. Like, every time you think they have holes, every time you think they're struggling in a certain area, they always come out in a big game and just answer all those questions. Last year against Texas, what was it? Oh, Georgia couldn't run the ball. Georgia couldn't do this. Georgia couldn't do that. And what'd they do? They went out, beat Texas twice. I think ETN had 6 touchdowns alone against Texas alone in those 2 games last year. So I think this is going to be one of those scenarios and situations where, we have some questions with Georgia's defense. Are they really there? Are they buttoned up? And I think they'll come out this game and answer those questions. I think Gunnar Stockton being at home is going to be a lot more comfortable. Alabama, I don't think it's talked about enough how much they've been struggling on the road. Last year they lost to Vandy on the road. They lost to Florida State on the road this year. They lost to Oklahoma on the road. I think they lost to Tennessee last year on the road. Since the Boars have been there, they have not been that great of a road team. And Georgia, like I said earlier, they have the longest home winning streak in the country. They haven't lost at home in 5-6 years. I don't think since 2019. And this is, I don't know, man. This is a tough spot. I can't, like I said last week against Tennessee, I can't bet against Kirby unless Georgia gives me a reason to bet against him. I've been a believer that Kirby Smart has a Nick Saban problem, not an Alabama problem. I know he lost last year, but that really wasn't his best offense last year that he had. I think they upgraded the receiver position, Zachariah Branch and a couple other guys. Obviously, they were able to stay toe-to-toe offensively with Tennessee on the road. Gunnar Stockton has been playing well this year. So I think, man, at home, I think that gives them a big, big advantage. I think their defense is going to come to play. I can't bet against Kirby Smart. I'm going to take Georgia minus 3.5. Actually, I take that back. It's minus 2.5. The line did shift. I'm recording this on Wednesday at 6:20. The line did move from 3.5 to 2.5. So we're going to take Georgia minus 2.5. So yeah, those are my picks for the weekend. TCU plus 2.5, USC minus 6.5, Notre Dame minus 4.5. We got LSU plus 1.5. I got Texas A&M minus 6.5. I got Penn State minus 3.5, and we got Georgia minus 3.5. Again, we had a good bounce back week last week, going 4-2. But yeah, we had a solid bounce back weekend last week. We are officially 11-11 against the spread this year. Not bad, not good. If I can be at 500, I'll take that. Anything above 500, that means you're positive, you're in the green. So not bad, 11-11. I'll take it. Lastly, before we get out of here, I'm going to try and start doing this every week, giving my updated week, AP rankings. We obviously know the AP isn't very good at their job, so I'm going to start taking it upon myself to rank these teams. It doesn't matter, but, it's extra content that we can put out. For my Week 5 AP Top 25, we are going with Miami at number 1. I think they've been the clear best team in the country, the most complete team. I think they have the best resume with Notre Dame, USF, and Florida. Ohio State at number 2. Georgia at number 3. Oregon at number 4, Penn State at number 5. I think Oregon and Penn State are similar teams. Both have not played the best competition, but Oregon, I think, has looked a lot better against that competition than Penn State. We got Oklahoma at 6. I made this before the John Mateer news came out. He's obviously going to be out for a few weeks, so I'm going to still keep them there just to respect what they've done so far. He's out for the Kent State game, and they have a bye, so he may just miss that Texas game. So even if they end up having one loss, I do still think Oklahoma with John Mateer is a top 6 team in the country. LSU, they've fell down my rankings a little bit. Like I said earlier, that offense is just not completely buttoned up. Don't really know what's going on with that. And they've just kind of struggled offensively. Florida State at 8, Texas A&M at 9. Indiana jumps into my top 10 after that dominant performance against Illinois. Texas Tech at 11. Texas at 12. I know this is a little low, but beating Sam Houston 55-0 isn't going to impress me. That offense has looked broken. Arch Manning has not looked complete. I have Texas making my national championship game, so I want them to be good. Mizzou, I think they're being underrated in the AP poll. Bo Perbula, I think they have great wins against South Carolina and against Kansas. Ole Miss at 14, Georgia Tech at 15, Tennessee at 16, Vandy at 17, Iowa State at 18, Michigan at 19, USC at 20, Alabama, they're still at 21. Until they play another good team, they're just not going to move for me because that Florida State, we saw what they were against Florida State. They got manhandled. Then they went on to play, a couple nobodies. They've looked good. So this weekend against Georgia, if they win, they'll shoot in my rankings, but I need to see them dominate in another game or just be good in another game before I can get that Florida State game out of my head. TCU at 22. They've been slowly sneaky one of the most underrated teams in the country. USF at 23, South Florida. I don't think they should have jumped out of the rankings, in my opinion, after they lost to Miami. Utah at 24. They played a good 3 1/4 game. They were good, not offensively. Offensively, they looked not too good, but overall, their defense played extremely well, and then they just slipped in those last 10 minutes of the game. So I got them at 24, and I got Louisville at 25. This is probably where a little bit of my bias comes in. You could really put any teams at that 25 spot. I put Louisville. They're 3-0. They looked good against, I know it was Bowling Green, but they didn't have 3 of their best 4 players. Isaac Brown played 1 play. Duke Watson didn't play. Chris Bell only played a couple series, and they still went out and dominated. They got their first test against Pitt on the road. I think we'll have more of an idea of what type of team this is. For some of my honorable mentions, I got Maryland. They could have easily been ranked. Notre Dame, I think with them being, having 2 losses, I just can't justify putting them in my ranking right now. Illinois fell out of my ranking after that abysmal performance against Indiana. Maryland, I think I already said Maryland. They're 3-0. They're a sneaky good Big Ten team so far. Memphis, after that win against Arkansas. Auburn is my just missed. So those are some of my just misses, but that is my Week 5 top 25. Let me know what you guys think. I know this episode ran a little long. We had so much to talk about, so many previews to get to. So I thank you if you're still here listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy this incredible Week 5 of college football we have going on. And I'll see you guys after the weekend. Thank you.